Hi everyone, this is Dragon GGY. This is the 15th episode of module recommendation featuring modules released in the Masses Travels as well as the Act or Die patch. Be sure to use the online Google Sheet and join my Discord server if you want to be involved in more discussions. Let's get started. We have a lot of module releases in May, starting off with the one and only Mlynar X. Base effect cuts the first attack build-up after deploying from the full 40 seconds to half, which is 20 seconds. So for his skill 3, which is a 20/42 skill, he can reach the highest attack by the time you have the first skill, instead of having to wait for some 18 extra seconds, which is a great QOL and boost to his momentum. The module provides multiple buffs including the attack attribute, 7 attack speed, which allows him to do 2 more attacks during skill 3, as well as the attack scale in talent upgrade. Those together bring a total of 27.4% skill damage increase, boosting to 134.8k, which is very in line with the top gen damage dealers. On top of that, he also gets a 10% increase to his damage reduction, so a bit of a survival boost as well, although the coverage is not that high. Overall, I'd say this is definitely a top module that facilitates his comeback since Exusiai, so must have for using him. The following ones are the 6th anniversary operators, starting with Exusiai Alter X. Base effect is great for reducing her downtimes, which are already short on their own. Skill 2 from 30 to 24 seconds, Skill 3 from 35 seconds to 28 seconds, and even if she's not getting external healing, the buff to the whole Geek archetype, which reduces their HP loss per second from 3% to 1%, can make sure she can get to enjoy the base effect with decent enough coverage. The upgrades are in 2 parts. One, increased crit chance. That improves her effectiveness being an ammo-based skill support, and also her ability to do some degree of AoE damage. Crit damage is significant in improving the DPH as well, which is a very important metric for her as a physical damage dealer. For example, her base crit damage was merely 1680 before module, and that becomes 2200 at level 3, surpassing the 2k bottlenecks. So, very significant. Overall, 17.1% damage increase to skill 2 and 23.1% to skill 3 with the higher attack modifier. Similar to how I say about Exusiai and her module, a great arsenal for a great operator. Single target version. Next, we have Lemuen Y. Base is a great one for improving skill cycles under the standard attack interval that's effectively a plus 0.37 SP per second buff, and works very well with skill 1 and under attack speed environment. Max ammo count increase is significant considering her skills involve less ammo, but each of them hits super hard. Attack modifier is also impactful on her because all her skills are attack scales. So from level 2 to level 3, you get the 5-second less warm-up time, 3% more attack modifier, as well as the 1 ammo increase for other lateral operators. This part of the upgrades, in my opinion, is less impactful. First of all, you should know that if the warm-up is done during skill, the additional ammo capacity is only available for the next skill instead of effective immediately. For skill 2, it's okay-ish because the startup time is exactly 15 seconds, but for skill 1 and skill 3, you'll have your first skill ready before the warm-up is over. So if you're gonna use the skill right after it's ready, it doesn't matter if the warm-up time is 15 seconds or 20 seconds. If you're holding onto the skill anyways, usually the 5 seconds difference wouldn't matter much either then. The lateral faction ammo buff is not bad. It does work for Exusiai Alter and Executor Alter. Significantly, Exusiai Alter skill 3 can still fire a 5-round burst even when she only have 1 ammo left. But for ammo skills outside of the faction, say Exusiai and Ascalon, they can get the buff, and even just inside the lateral faction, that ammo ecosystem still isn't super impactful. So I'd say for Lemuen, you should at least get her module to level 2. Level 3 is clearly more optional with the buffs it provides, but it's certainly okay to go for that extra bit. Next, we have the welfare operator Sankta Miksaparato X. Base effect, Invis Reveal, great utility upgrade. Defense plus in upgrades go directly to the base attribute so that they get to be multiplied by defense modifiers to become bigger numbers. But attack speed, on the other hand, is not that necessary for a defensive character. Skill 2 even encourages him to save ammo for tanking fatal damage, so that's an anti-synergy. Skill 3 stops him from attacking, and that's an even lower improvement there. the effect of preventing attack speed from dropping below 0 may become an anti-synergy as well if you use him as the target for, let's say, Exia skill 2 attack speed still, or just overall when you want to leave with that attack speed debuff to help him preserve ammo and therefore his defensive stats. Since you can degrade modules, I say stay away from the upgrades until we have actual applications for them. Next, Muelsyse Y. The upgrade effects can help with Muelsyse's long startup for a little bit, but that's it. You are getting 10 SP sure, but mind you, you need 5 seconds again before you can copy someone without Module X. Muelsyse is not a damage-focused tactician, and coordinating attack with the reinforcement doesn't net much value, not to mention that the flowing shapes usually don't block enemies when you copy a ranged operator. Limiting the bonus to Rhine Lab operator only makes it less widely applicable as well. I get that it probably encourages you to switch between Rhine Lab members depending on the situation, but the option is honestly limited for now. The usual targets would be Dorothy and Saria, I guess, but Dorothy wouldn't benefit too much from this, so it's mostly Saria skill 3 that's on the table. But the practical value of this combo is very questionable, and I think the Rhine Lab faction is missing a big damage dealer, so overall not as impactful as the QOL to use experience from Module X. So with that, I'd still recommend Module X more. Module Y is clearly a Rhine Lab special for whoever's concerned, but for general players, I say wait for more next-gen Rhine Lab members, as it seems that we will be expecting the Rhine Lab/Yerak storyline coming soon. Next, we have Thorns Δ. It deals 1575 E damage to ranged enemies in bursts, so that's a very high number with great damage quality, and considering that with this module also comes the Nervous Ritualist Tragodia in the next month, you can forge some combo between them just like how you would use the 1+1 element combo. The problem here is that while the damage conversion rate is not as low as 8%, it's just 10%, so the similar problem to Ifrit Delta would commonly occur again, where weaker enemies die before the burst even happens. For a lane-holding character like Thorns, you don't want that to happen, and it's obviously not as competitive as Module X, with which the damage is evenly distributed instead of backloaded. So if a target never enters Nervous Burst, this module is not doing any better than Module X, and that happens on mobs almost all the time. Again, the concept work on Logos because he's aimed to annihilate. He has talent 1 to squeeze in more damage, and he has talent 2 to improve its damage quality, while Thorns is a strictly single target whose damage need to go through both defense and resistance for the final result. And at the end of the day, the E damage is a fixed number DOT written in black and white, not affected by attack and attack speed buffs at all. So while Module X is the more widely applicable one, which means it never goes quite wrong to bring this one to a stage blind, Delta on the other hand could kill enemies with higher HP faster so that they can survive until the burst and take a good chunk of E damage. Overall, if you have already unlocked his Module X, I don't think you need Delta. If you haven't and want to play with the element gimmick a little bit or to combo with Tragodia and future pieces in the nerf element, you can opt for Module Delta. Otherwise, I still recommend Module X more. Next, Silence Alter Y. It's a really great base effect, doubles her DPS and HPS based on target count, so greater performance in multi-healing scenarios, and a mechanic worth pointing out about this module is that the barrier will be applied when the target is about to take the damage that will bring them to below half health. It doesn't take up attack animation as well, so that's massive for preventing teammates from being one-hit KO'd. Generally, that's more impactful than the generic max HP increase from Module X, but in terms of HPS towards one target, this module does have less compared to X. Overall, not a bad module. The reason I kept it at B rating is more of a meta consideration because we have Haruka on our way, which provides a much more modern design to the Abjura archetype while rocking the same base module. So in comparison, actually this module is much better in my opinion as a general option for Silence Alter. If you haven't unlocked any module for her, this would be my recommendation. But if you aren't using her a lot anyways, then I'd say hold off for now until she's really needed for your game. And then we have the Crownslayer Vi module, the redemption arc, I guess you can say. Both the base effect and the upgraded talent are easy to trigger considering that you would only ever use a skill 3 anyways. Damage improvement up to 40.6% and of course most importantly now deals an 18-second consistent stun lock to up to 3 enemies. A lot of the damage improvement comes from her damage scale increase from talent though, so that's a post-defense calculation, therefore not that high of an improvement to DPH. And as goated this module is, it doesn't change the targeting mechanic of skill 3, and does not prioritize enemies currently stunned in the attack sequence, so it becomes unreliable when you have more than 3 enemies in that range, and certainly is not very impactful if the target is stun immune. In comparison, although the base effect of Module X is pretty good to cover her higher DP as a welfare, that really wouldn't help if you don't have a reason to bring her. And Module Y is here to give you the reason. Better damage, big implication for crowd control. In fact, this module has shown up massively in the ongoing CCP4. She's not in the final roster, but that already speaks volume of how far this module can take Crownslayer from where she once was. 100% recommended as the module choice. For modules in Act or Die, we have Tragodia X. The module as a whole is very important to boost his stats and the amount of elemental injury he can deal to reach critical breakpoints. The most important one would be triggering burst for any enemy, be it non-boss or boss, in one skill 2 summon use. The reduced attack speed for enemies in burst helps to prolong the duration of paralysis because it's an effect that wears off on attack, so it expires later if the enemies attack slower, buying more time for his crowd control, especially with skill 3. The boost to nervous impairment on attack though is not that impactful. For enemies with a long attack interval, that number is just way too low and they may just got knocked into nervous burst with actual attacks anyways. For faster attacking enemies, I guess it's okay, but paralysis is less significant on these enemies anyways, so in terms of tactical value, it's perhaps less impactful than the attack attributes. Still, this is a good module for a very good operator, so I think it's completely worth it to put in the resources. Here are some notable breakpoints for reference, and for more customized calculations, you can use the breakpoint calculator that I made for Tragodia linked in the description. Download to use it locally. Next, we have the upcoming operator for global Necrass, aka Mlynar X. The module provides damage boosts from multiple aspects, again, including attribute, base effect scale, and the attack multiplier from upgrades. That will total up to a 54.96% damage increase, which is crazy. Sure, all of them are conditional, enemies need to be blocked, the attack increase has a time window, and you also have to trigger talent 2, which comes in when the enemies are below 60% HP. But in practice, you should get at least 1 or 2 of them active, so don't worry. The upgrade in level 3 also allows her to spawn her pawns or servants, whatever you like to call them, either from her own attack range or that of her summons. So that's a great QOL because it's quite often that enemies will be blocked outside of Necrass' own range by her summons, and this feature changes that. What's not that optimal though is that when using skill 3, her special summon will have its attack range reduced and fixed to just the 1 tile in front, as compared to the normal 4 adjacent tile, and it stays that way even when the summon has been upgraded and extended its skill range forward. This honestly sucks a lot considering the skill of the summon is a very important part of skill 3's damage, and the fact that the summon doesn't always face where the enemies are coming from due to the mechanic of this skill makes it worse. Last bit is part of a rambling, but this module doesn't address the difficulty of spawning her first summon at a preferred location, so in terms of QOL we get a little out of this module, but still much more to be desired. For the second modules in this batch, we have Ascalon Y. This one is very similar to Mizuki's Y module, providing self-sustain for her to operate without healing resources. And it's easier to trigger due to the long duration of the DOT, and the fact that the kill doesn't need to come from Ascalon herself. So she can operate further from everyone, let the enemy slowly crawl towards your fire range, and she gets the healing from the kill. It works with skill 3 best because the base effect works with that skill to further reduce the chance of being hit from 25% to just 17.5%. The extended range allows her to apply talent 1 on more enemies and gain more healing off of it. However, for general users, you don't always let ambushes to just operate on their own, otherwise they wouldn't have the taunt decrease trait. And if you play her with healing available, I think the crowd control aspect from Module X would be more important. And the thing with skill 3 is that it's not really used as much. We use Ascalon mainly for the slow or movement speed reduction, and skill 2 is very good at it. Skill 3 also has an inherent healing mechanic already, so sometimes it ends up being a overkill on survival but insufficient in damage and crowd control. Given Ascalon's situation, I'd say self-sustain really isn't her biggest concern, so I think Module X that plays through her strengths is the better option overall. Module Y can be used in situations like IS where you don't have enough healing or want her to operate alone. For general content, X is more widely applicable. Next, we have Mountain X. This is a survival-based module. The base effect and upgrades combined gives him an overall 36.25% dodge chance. And the key thing about the mechanic is that when he's taking multiple attacks, for example from range, any successful dodge can trigger the tremble attack. So actually, the more frequent enemies attack, the better the result. But the thing here is that triggering dodge nets him 0 offensive boost. He only gets slightly higher damage from attributes, and that's all this module offers. Trembling enemies is good, but if he can't kill them faster, it's just some more stalling. It gets worse if the enemy is the hard-hitting but slow attacking type. If you compare it to Module Y, while Mod Y was more offensive focused, increased attack speed and crit rate, although just by 5%, also works to weaken enemy to provide some survival bonus. So in a sense, Module Y was actually a 2-in-1, while Module X seems relatively pale being a defensive only upgrade. Given the current meta in AFK lane holding, I think Y would do him better overall. If you don't use him anymore in daily, his modules are easy skips as well. Side note, you either don't unlock Module X at all or go straight to level 3, because level 1 alone ain't doing much. The 1-second tremble in level 2 is an absolute joke as well. Finally, we have Dorothy X. This is a function/utility module and helps to conquer tiles faster if that's ever needed, and also crowd control coverage with skill 2. Base effect could come to be useful when you have constraints on DP or deployment limit. Note that the additional trap placed in Dorothy's range from the upgrade effect is also limited by the deploy count cap, so the effect may also let you reach the cap faster without you paying much attention. The upgrades don't work with skill 3 grade since it involves micromanagement and is less spammy to avoid unintended chain triggers. Compared to Y, the module doesn't have offensive bonuses, and the number of available tiles in Dorothy's range can vary, so it's less applicable overall. In comparison, Module X's application is gonna come down to very specific situations. For example, if they continue to bring in gramophone captures in icebreaker games, while Module Y is more widely applicable. The buff is easy to trigger, the double damage trap is deadly and brings great experience using Dorothy. Recommend sticking to Module Y, only consider X when an application arises. That's gonna be it for this episode. Hope this has been informative, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.